putting the psychic inhibitors on him, I get why they did that. I mean, not just so that he could have some kind of a normal life, but seriously, how do you parent this child? Like, before you really place any harsh judgment on Reed and Sue, think about it. This kid could turn you into a booger if you don't give him a cookie, okay? And he won't even mean to. Everything he has done at this point, none of it was intentional. He had no idea he was doing it at all. Around this time in Fantastic Four 267, Sue gets pregnant with a second child. However, when she goes into labor, there's a huge problem. It doesn't go well. And they actually have the help of Dr. Doom. Unfortunately for everyone involved, the baby doesn't make it. And this is some really heavy stuff that Fantastic Four deals with. Because of Franklin's incredibly powerful psionic abilities, which cannot be completely suppressed with Reed's psychic inhibitors, he's able to sense his mother's pain. Like, he can understand he had a baby sister and now he doesn't. He pretty much experiences it vicariously through his mother. In Fantastic Four number 277, the Lord of Marvel Hell, Mephisto, enters the chat and he kidnaps Franklin to blackmail the Fantastic Four into stealing some stuff for him. But he knows how powerful Franklin is. Like, he can practically smell it on him. So he keeps him locked in this like diamond cocoon, unconscious, while he waits. Through the help of Agatha and Doctor Strange, the Fantastic Four go to hell to rescue Franklin. Franklin wakes up. He yells no at Mephisto and defeats him by shattering him into several pieces across the cosmos. Conveniently, at that precise moment, Wanda is enjoying her lovely honeymoon with her synthezoid husband in New Jersey, and she's at the moment exactly saying, I just wish we could have babies. And while those pieces of Mephisto's soul are floating above her in the ether, she subconsciously, very similar to how Franklin does things, snatches them out of the air, puts them in her womb, and magically makes Billy and Tommy Maximal. Though Franklin and Agatha did have that very tight familial bond, Agatha had to move on. Franklin moved back in permanently with his parents at the Baxter Building. If Reed, and Sue for that matter, wanted Franklin to have a normal childhood, does that mean this kid ever got to do normal kid things? Did he ever go to school? Did he ever make friends? Like, especially his own age? Like, did Reed make it a point to spend time with his son, like quality time? What kind of childhood would this kid have? And exactly how long was childhood supposed to last for him? Because remember, when he was created in 1968, he was intended to be a character that the child readers would grow up with. Here we are in the 80s. We're at like mid 80s now, and he's still like 4 or 5 years old. Clearly that's not happening, right? There's something wonky going on here. So even though Reed put these psychic inhibitors on his child, he wasn't going to let anyone know that he's basically bypassing them. He's using them to astral project himself long distances, and he's now able to actually see multiple possible probability powers. He uses these abilities to join a preteen superhero team known as Power Pack. He even gets his own code name, Tattletale. None of the parents were aware that the Power Kids, who were Alex, Julie, Jack, and Katie, had any powers whatsoever. I mean, really, nobody knew that Franklin had access to his powers either, let alone that any of these kids had formed their own super cool little super team. But here these kids were jaunting across the galaxy on their own, going to alien planets, solving problems. They even made friends with a chameleon, which is a horse-looking alien race, named Whitemane. And Franklin got pretty close with Whitey. He really liked it. They became buddies. It's in this era that you really start seeing them use that mutant word pretty heavy with Franklin. Again, up until this point, they were really attributing his powers to that cosmic control rod, or the energy inside the cosmic control rod. Now you're seeing him as mutant and proud, just really flat out declaring him as one of the muties. These comics saw Franklin finally having his own adventures, making friends, stories and stuff without the rest of the Fantastic Four, which was really good for him as a character, and it made for some cutesy little stories for younger readers. However, where the were his parents? Seriously! They were off doing science stuff and superhero things, of course, and they were living at Avengers headquarters, the Avengers Mansion. They had actually gotten pretty tight with the Power family. You know, they became friends. Reed and Sue decide that it may be a good idea that Franklin actually live with the Power family for a while. Might be good for him to not live at a superhero headquarters and maybe experience a normal family for a bit. Basically, they don't have to take care of their kid. But also, they're not considering the Power family in this thing, you know? Like, the Power family already has 4 kids, okay? They have 4 kids. That's a lot of kids. Ask me how I know. And on top of it, you're going to give them a 5th child, not just a 5th child, but a child that can randomly, spontaneously age himself into an adult with amnesia that can go through walls and conjure explosions and wipe your mind. Like, they are not prepared for this. This will be great for Franklin. And it actually was. It's probably the happiest time in Franklin's childhood is living with the Power family. And it was also Franklin's first taste, first experience in what it could have been like having siblings. And that was amazing for him. He was an only child. He was a lonely child. So he's a New York City lonely boy. So this was great for him. It really was. Fictional and publication wise, this was the happiest time in Franklin Richards' life. You know, speaking of first time experiencing siblings and being empathetic to his mother's loss of his younger sister, this all comes up later when he basically makes a sister for himself. That's another one to keep in your back pocket. If Franklin Richards at this point represents anything, then it most definitely represents generational trauma. Reed is most definitely the child of neglect. His father, Nathaniel Richards, was never around. He built a time machine when Reed was a child and fucked off. Like he discovered this parallel dimension and he's like, oh, these parallel dimension people, they need my help in rebuilding their world. I'm going to stay and help them. There's a child at home which would be just as fulfilling. I'm going to do this instead. And later, Jonathan Hickman will really expand on that, because in the earlier comics, you know, in the 80s and stuff, they don't really expand on Nathaniel at all. But around the late 80s, we do get some Nathaniel Richards action. Getting bored with the utopia he's basically created instead of raising his child, he decides to go check out his world's future, and it ain't great. It's revealed that one possible future, his grandson Franklin will hook up with Scott Summers and Jean Grey's daughter, Rachel Summers, and make an evil baby by the name of Hyperstorm. Hyperstorm will become this unstoppable villain, a mutant capable of drawing virtually limitless energy from hyperspace itself. So Nathaniel planned to zip on back in time, abduct his very young grandson Franklin, and replace him with a teenage version of him that he's already raised and trained and goes by the code name Psylord. And the plan was to screw up the time so that he and Rachel Summers wouldn't hook up. Unfortunately, his great-grandson, Hyperstorm, already saw this coming and already had it all worked out to switch Psylord and young Franklin back. So it happens anyway. Even though his plan was thwarted, this version of Nathaniel Richards vows to stick around-ish in a kind of, I'm going to watch from afar capacity, to be this loyal protector of his family, kind of look out for him and stuff. He continues to appear in different timelines to kind of look out for and help Franklin along the way. And this makes him, I don't really want to say heroic, but, somewhat a mythic figure in the family, if not questionable. But I promised you, nigh all-powerful, right? Where's the all-powerfulness? When does it get really crazy? Because we haven't got really crazy yet. I mean, him aging himself up is pretty crazy, but it's not really crazy. I promise I'm getting there. It takes some setting up, so respect the narrative, okay? Did you know that Franklin Richards took on the combined might of Professor X and Magneto as a child and then created a universe? And again, here we are. Franklin is still a kid, still a child. In my honest, nerdy opinion, Franklin didn't get really interesting until 1996. Until Onslaught. If you recall, I did mention that at some point, Franklin actually becomes a plot device for Marvel writers. Now, they did use him previously to kind of reset the Thing's design. Well, now they're really using him as a plot device. In DC Comics, when things get convoluted and messy, they have a crisis event to clean things up. In Marvel, they call Franklin Richards. Onslaught was an incredibly powerful psychic being that was created from the combination of the dark and violent impulses of Professor X and Magneto. In a moment of desperation, Professor X tried to suppress Magneto's rage, and his mind absorbed a significant portion of Magneto's violent and hateful psyche in the process. The combination of dark thoughts and psychic power created an independent psychic entity known as Onslaught. Onslaught later gained physical form, becoming a massive, technologically enhanced cyborg. He then would feed off the other mutant heroes. Onslaught could control minds, project psychic energy, manipulate reality, as well as draw on vast amounts of mutant energy. Onslaught eventually launched a major assault on the superhero community, forcing Earth's heroes, including the X-Men and the Avengers and Fantastic Four, to unite against him. The final battle was absolutely devastating, with many heroes seemingly perishing while trying to stop Onslaught's plan. Following a battle where Onslaught's armor is destroyed, he becomes a being of pure psychic energy and requires more power to fully evolve. He targets the extraordinarily powerful young Franklin Richards, and he tries to lure him in by projecting an image of a little boy calling himself Charles. This manipulation culminates in Onslaught taking Franklin away after a confrontation with the Fantastic Four, Avengers, and other heroes. By using the Charles construct, Onslaught succeeds in getting close enough to Franklin to ultimately capture him, adding Franklin's powers to his own. Onslaught successfully absorbs Franklin's reality-bending powers, making him more powerful than ever. He then unleashes an electromagnetic pulse all over Manhattan. Have we learned anything from Marvel Comics? Don't live in New York. Stick to the Midwest. Reed realizes that the Thing is a psychic machine. It can be overloaded. It can be weakened. All of the heroes, mutant and non-mutant, must go into Onslaught's psychic form. Reed had the stunning idea that the non-muties could actually weaken it. All of the heroes sacrifice sacrifice themselves, allowing the X-Men to defeat Onslaught. Basically, this was Marvel as a publication realizing in 1996 the only comics that were actually selling was X-Men and Spider-Man. Unbeknownst to anyone, Little Bitty Franklin instinctively uses his immense, unconscious, psionic, and reality warping abilities very absolute last second. He creates a tiny pocket dimension and teleports the seemingly deceased heroes into it, saving them from oblivion. He goes around like carrying this pocket dimension around, but he doesn't exactly know what it is. He just knows it's this little blue ball, and he knows he needs to keep it with him. He needs to keep it safe. But in reality, it is pocket dimension where he has saved all the dead heroes. It is the storyline that has sparked the theory, is Franklin Richards the secret author of the Marvel Universe? Is he really the one controlling everything? Did you hear the one about the little boy who created a universe and annoyed the actual creators of the universe? Immediately after Onslaught, Franklin is taken in by the mutant team Generation X. Parents, the Avengers, and virtually everyone are seemingly dead. So he's got nowhere else to go. Generation X takes him in, and he lives at their campus. Unconsciously, Franklin uses his little blue ball pocket universe and makes a little playground for himself and some friends. Now, he lives with a couple of other friends, like Artie Maddox and Leech. Leech is actually a super powerful mutant, and I don't know why they don't go into more detail about him. He can shut off anyone's mutant power, but he creates this little pocket universe with his, what he calls the Charles Ball, and I'll tell you why, to cope with this trauma. He's just lost all of his family and friends, and he deals with it with the Charles Ball. Man-Thing, the empathetic swamp creature that acts as the guardian to the nexus of all realities located in the Florida Everglades, because that's where you would put that. Howard the Duck, Tana Nile, a warrior woman who once helped Thor, and like I said, Artie Maddox and Leech, they all hang out with him in this ball, and it's in this mini series in between Onslaught and the next thing called Daydreamers. As the Daydreamers go on these adventures, they begin to investigate the mysterious Charles Ball. They experience the Never Never Narnazibia. It's this bizarre alternate dimensional realm that accesses other realms that represents Franklin Richards' subconscious and the manifestation of his unaddressed trauma. This surreal world is the result of Franklin's reality warping powers, which he uses unconsciously as a coping mechanism following the supposed deaths of his parents and everyone else during Onslaught. Man-Thing is drawn to strong emotions because he's an empath. He acts as a living portal to this reality. And as the group travels through this world, they are forced to confront the hidden fears and psychological issues of Franklin. Like, he is way more powerful than we could have ever thought before. This is the first time we start to really understand just how powerful Franklin is. He is creating worlds within worlds, subconsciously, to deal with trauma. Imagine if he could consciously do this stuff. Like, it would be mind-blowing. Ultimately, Franklin's guilt over his parents' apparent deaths caused him to release the heroes he had unknowingly trapped within the Charles Ball. The counter Earth realm was instantly created, and the inhabitants did not experience true sequential history. Instead, they were reborn into new lives with rewritten pasts, retaining no memory of their previous existence on Earth 616. Many of these retold origins, such as the Fantastic Four gaining their powers in space differently, were altered to modernize them for the mid-1990s market.
Disney and Kathleen Kennedy are gonna get you!